was really weird. The thing had a definite shape, a hollow, more or less cylindrical. Michael Collins, Apollo 11, command module pilot, the man who flew alone around the far side of the moon while Armstrong and Aldrin walked on it. In the technical crew debriefing the 3 astronauts gave to NASA in 1969, Collins described seeing something out his window that he could not identify. The Pentagon released that debriefing on May 8, 2026. They did not redact this passage. In the same paragraph, Collins goes out of his way to tell the debriefers it was not the urine dump. He had thought about it. He had already considered the most prosaic explanation available to an astronaut looking at an unidentified object outside a spacecraft, and he ruled it out himself. He was not a credulous witness. He was a careful one, and he saw something he could not name.
This is Unresolved Signals, an AI-powered investigation into the oldest open question in human history. Every document, every country, every question, every release.
Every source cited in this episode is linked at unresolvedsignals.com. On May 8, 2026, the Department of War launched a website. The address is war.gov/UFO. The program behind it is called Pursue, the Presidential Unsealing and Reporting System for UAP Encounters. The release contained 161 records, 28 videos, 14 images, FBI files going back to 1947, NASA debriefings, State Department cables, Department of War mission reports. The cover story was straightforward, unprecedented transparency. The framing across the major outlets was something else. Scientific American led with the line, quote, "Skeptics aren't impressed," end quote. The War Zone headlined the release as, quote, "The newly released government UFO archives will leave you shrugging," end quote. MSNBC, quote, "Prepare to be underwhelmed," end quote. Kotaku ran the story under, quote, "No sight of little green space dudes," end quote. We read every word. We ran our own forensic analysis on every one of the 28 videos. We pulled verbatim quotes from every document the release published. We are going to tell you what we found, and we are going to be honest about which parts of the press framing are right and which parts are wrong. We want to name our structure up front because the structure is the argument. The honest accounting of Pursue Tranche 1 organizes the corpus into 3 buckets. Bucket 1. Material that survives skeptical scrutiny. We will read the strongest documents in the release verbatim, including documents that the Pentagon's own analysis office has designated as, quote, "among the most compelling within its current holdings," end quote. Bucket 2. Material that does not survive skeptical scrutiny, and we say so. This includes most of the 28 videos that the press has been fixating on. Our forensic pass found that 18 of them, on visual evidence alone, do not resist prosaic explanation. We will name the explanations. Bucket 3. Material that was specifically promised by name by a member of Congress with a deadline and which did not arrive. The most famous UAP incident of the past 5 years is in this bucket. The episode walks all 3. We have a position. We will tell you what it is at the end. We are not picking a verdict for you in advance. One more thing. The Pentagon has said the rolling release will continue. Tranche 2 is rumored for June. The full picture is not in yet. What we are giving you is the honest reading of what arrived first. We are going to start with the modern material. The 2 strongest documents in the entire release came out on the same day, and almost no one in the press has read them carefully. The first is a secret/NOFORN incident report, 12 pages, stamped on every page, released by the Department of War as part of Pursue Tranche 1. The dates and names are redacted. The substance is preserved. The author is a senior United States intelligence official. The report covers what happened to him on a helicopter ride in 2025. The month and day are blacked out. The location is described as a mountain range west of a redacted site code name, near a redacted facility, somewhere in the western United States. He was riding with another senior intelligence official, with pilots from a state partner organization, and with personnel from at least 4 federal partner agencies. The mission was a debris search. Earlier that day, an office had completed a successful test of a system at the site. Civilians near the perimeter had reported orbs and lights, and they had reported, quote, thuds, as if something had fallen and hit the ground. End quote. We want you to hear what comes next as the witness wrote it, not as we are characterizing it. At 17:51 hours, the helicopter spotted a cavern entrance. The witness uses that word, cavern. He logs the coordinates. The helicopter conducts a short orbit and continues. At 21:41 hours, the helicopter lifts off again toward debris spotted by an observation post 4 miles east of the site. The post is operated by Federal Partner 4, using forward-looking infrared and night vision goggles. The helicopter orbits in near full darkness, searching with night vision and the helicopter spotlight. They find nothing. At 22:02 hours, the observation post reports an orb under infrared, described as, quote, super hot, end quote, hovering at ground level. The orb then heads east at a high rate of speed and breaks into two objects. At 22:07 hours, the Joint Operations Center reports 5 military aircraft are in the airspace conducting a training mission. The helicopter searches for the orb with infrared, night vision, and the naked eye. The observation post then reports that the orb gained elevation, came within 10 feet of the helicopter, and headed east. The helicopter moves to intercept, but cannot match speed. The pursuit is broken off. At 22:18 hours, the co-pilot, under night vision, reports seeing something emerge from the two objects and travel in a different direction at high speed. The pilots, on night vision, and the senior intelligence official, on the naked eye, then see what the report calls, quote, a swarm of lights too many to count, moving in all directions, end quote. At 22:27 hours, the helicopter loses visual of the swarm. Then two large orbs appear in close proximity to the helicopter, to the west and above the rotor disc. The report describes them as, quote, oval-shaped, orange in color with a white or yellow center, and emitting light in all directions, end quote. A third orb flares up below the two, then another below that one, until there are 4 or 5 total. Then they flare down in reverse order. At 22:28 hours, the same observers see another formation, this time to the west over the mountains, above the military aircraft. The orbs flare up one at a time in a horizontal formation. After 10 to 15 seconds, they flare down in the opposite order. At 22:33 hours, the same formation appears to the east, in the direction of a nearby town. At 22:41 hours, a single orb flares west of the site. At 22:49 hours, 3 distinct orbs appear in a triangle formation, surrounded by a swarm. At 22:52 hours, 5 to 6 orbs flare in a horizontal formation east of the site. At 22:57 hours, 4 orbs flare up over the military aircraft as they descend to land. The encounter runs from 1700 hours until 23:20 hours, 6 hours, roughly 13 distinct time-stamped sighting events. The platform is a helicopter. The witnesses include 2 senior intelligence officials, pilots from a state partner organization, and federal personnel at the observation post. The sensors are forward-looking infrared, night vision goggles, the naked eye, and the helicopter's own spotlight. 4 federal partner agencies are involved. The classification is secret/NOFORN. At the end of the operational log, the senior intelligence official adds a comment section. We are going to read his 3 preserved sentences verbatim, the way they appear on the page. Quote, pilots indicated they were recording. However, many sightings were above the helicopter, which was outside of the helicopter's FLIR camera angle. End quote. Quote, some things I could not see with the naked eye, but I recall the pilots calling out sightings. End quote. And then the line that we want you to hear the way he wrote it. Quote, the orbs appeared to break off from call sign 1 and pursue the military aircraft. End quote. That is a senior United States intelligence official in a classified incident report he prepared for the record, saying that he watched orbs pursue a U.S. military aircraft. We are not characterizing his words. Those are his words. We had to read that twice. The Pentagon released that document on May 8, 2026. As far as we can tell, no major outlet has quoted it in full. The second document came out on the same day. It is a Pentagon briefing slide deck. The Department of War's All-Domain Anomaly Resolution Office, the agency known as AARO, prepared it for the Pursue Tranche 1 launch. The cover labels it the Western U.S. event. It covers 4 separate sightings over a 2-day period in 2023. The witnesses are 3 teams of 2 federal law enforcement special agents each, 6 agents total, designated USPER-1 through USPER-6. A 7th agent joins for the final incident. The location is the Western United States, in a restricted zone. The date is 2 days in 2023. CBS News confirmed the year in its post-release coverage. Before we read the 4 sightings, we want to name the institutional weight. At the bottom of the slide deck, the Pentagon's own analysis office writes that this report, in its own words, quote, combined to make this report among the most compelling within AARO's current holdings, end quote. That is not the show characterizing the file. That is the agency that exists to evaluate UAP reports, telling the public on its own letterhead that this one is among the strongest material it holds. We want you to keep that in mind as we read the 4 sightings. First sighting. The slide title is Orbs Launching Orbs. Time of day, dusk, on 2 separate days. 3 teams of 2 federal law enforcement special agents each, independently, from varying locations and vantage points, describe seeing orange orbs in the sky emit smaller red orbs in groups of 2 to 4. The general consensus is groups of 3. This happens at least 5 times. Each time an orange orb appears, launches red orbs, and disappears. The orange orb is only visible for 1 or 2 seconds. The red orbs generally move away from the orange mother orb in a horizontal path, but in some instances one moves at an angle, and in some instances one swoops down. The slide labels the orange orb the mother orb. Because of the sequential nature of the events, the slides say, it is not known whether there was a single mother orb releasing groups of red orbs, or whether there were multiple mother orbs at play. Second sighting. The slide title is Large Fiery Orb. 2 of the federal law enforcement special agents, USPER-5 and USPER-6, witness a glowing orange orb at a distance the agents initially estimate at 500 to 600 meters, perched close to a rock pinnacle. The size is hard to determine, but they compare it to a, quote, small helicopter cockpit, end quote. The agents are unable to clearly see any structure other than the glowing orb, though one of them notes the object, quote, did almost appear it might have had a small spindle or something connecting it from underneath to the rock formation, end quote. The object emits no sound. The sighting lasts about a minute. We want to read the simile the witnesses themselves used, because the simile is in their words, not in ours. Quote, similar to the Eye of Sauron from Lord of the Rings, except without the pupil, or maybe an orange storm electrified bowling ball, end quote. That is the witnesses, federal law enforcement officers, in a restricted zone in the western United States, reaching for the most absurdly specific pop culture references they can find to describe what they were looking at. We do not have to embellish this. They did it for us. After the event, AARO sent personnel to the location and measured the geometry. The slide deck contains the measurements. The object was approximately 1,050 meters away. It was between 12 and 18 meters in diameter, 40 to 60 feet across. That is the agency's own assessment. It went there. It measured. It put the numbers on the briefing slide. Third sighting. The slide title is Dark Kite. Pre-dawn, 2 federal law enforcement special agents, USPER-5 and USPER-6, observe what they initially think is a car traveling along a road in the restricted zone. The car has 2 lights, one red and one white, about 2 to 3 feet off the ground. The agents pursue what they think is a car. As they close within a few hundred feet, the object moves off the road, over the desert, without changing its orientation with respect to the observers. It appears to move laterally, at an estimated 15 to 20 miles per hour, with 0 acceleration profile. The object then stops about 100 meters off the side of the road. It turns off its lights. One agent describes the back of the object as, quote, a thin line, end quote. The other describes it as, quote, an ill-defined dark kite shape that had some rounded width to the sides, end quote. Through night vision, after the lights go out, only the thin line remains, 4 feet wide, horizontal to the ground. In later discussions, AARO assesses that the object was, quote, triangular, end quote. Fourth sighting. The slide title is Transparent Kite. About 30 minutes after the dark kite sighting, the same 2 agents return to the same general area with a 3rd agent. They observe a kite-shaped object about 6 meters off the ground. One uses night vision, one uses the bare eye. The 3rd does not see the object. Through night vision, the witness observes that he can, quote, vaguely see a bright star or 2 in the distance through the object, though somewhat more faint, end quote. The object is transparent. Then the witness loses sight of it and tries to relocate it with a spotlight. We want to read what he says next, because what he says next is one of the most physically unusual observations in the entire Pursue corpus. Quote, at one point my beam went from shining far into the distance to stopping about 50 yards away on nothing in particular. It just was not projecting into the distance, and then it was, end quote. His flashlight beam terminated on nothing. Then it didn't. He pointed the light at the spot where it had appeared to be blocked. The light projected to the distance again. They were unable to reacquire the object. We are not asking you to know what that was. We are asking you to know it is in a Pentagon briefing slide, prepared by the Department of War's own analysis office, designated by that office as among the most compelling material in its holdings, and signed off for public release on May 8, 2026. We are also asking you to notice that almost no headline writer at any major outlet read past the first FBI memo from 1949. The 3rd modern document is shorter and easier to summarize. The date is March 2023. The location is the Pacific time zone of the United States, near a national security facility. The witness is a civilian. The vehicle is a large blue triangular object hovering low to the ground. The witness observes it for 8 minutes. He describes it as, quote, backing up in a jerking, jumping manner, end quote. The document released by the Department of War is the Air Force Office of Special Investigations email correspondence handling the declassification workflow on the report. The internal AFOSI emails are preserved. The witness statement is preserved. The location is redacted, but the institutional channel is on the record. We are not asking you to assign weight to a single civilian witness report in 2023. We are asking you to notice that the Pentagon released AFOSI's internal handling of it. The institutional treatment is what the document shows. The thing happened, the witness reported it through proper channels, and the channel that received it was the same AFOSI directorate that ran the Benowitz operation 40 years earlier. If you have not heard us talk about Benowitz, that is episode 10. We will not relitigate it here. We are flagging the institutional continuity. We are going to leave the modern material for a moment and go backward, because the next strongest documents in Pursue Tranche 1 are between 50 and 80 years old, and they form a chain. We started this episode with Michael Collins. We are going back to him. In the Apollo 11 technical crew debriefing, dated 1969, Collins describes seeing an object outside the command module. The Pentagon's release contains the original NASA debriefing transcript. We want to give you the full context the way the document gives it. Collins says the thing had a definite shape. He uses the word, quote, weird, end quote. He describes it as, quote, hollow, more or less cylindrical, end quote. And then, on his own, without prompting, he addresses the most prosaic explanation an astronaut would think of first: the urine dump. The Apollo spacecraft had to vent wastewater periodically. The vented water would freeze in the vacuum of space and create a trail of bright particles. It is a known prosaic source of mistaken UAP reports from astronauts. Collins explicitly rules it out. He says, on the record, in the debriefing, that what he was looking at was not the urine dump. We want to be clear what that means. He was a witness who was actively trying to debunk himself. He had every professional incentive not to make the report. He did it anyway. 3 years later, Apollo 12, lunar module pilot Alan Bean, same kind of debrief, different mission. Bean is talking about the lights he sees through the alignment optical telescope on the dark side of the spacecraft. He thinks for a moment they are particles from his water boiler. Then he says something else. We want you to hear the line the way the transcript records it, because the line is the line. Quote, "It looks like some of those things are escaping the moon. They really haul out of here and just press off at the stars," end quote. Apollo 17, 1972, Commander Gene Cernan, the last man to walk on the surface of the moon. The technical debriefing transcript records his observation directly. Quote, "There is something out there," end quote. Apollo 17, again, 1973, crew debriefing for science. Lunar module pilot Jack Schmitt, trained geologist, reports seeing a flash on the lunar surface. Schmidt's geologist's instinct is to recommend cross-checking the seismometers because a meteor impact would register. He files the observation. The debriefing records it. Skylab 3, 1973. Astronaut Owen Garriott. The Skylab technical debriefing transcript contains his observation in his own words. Quote, "A reddish, rotating satellite. No one ever explained," end quote. These are 5 named NASA astronauts, 5 primary source debriefing documents, all in the Pursue Tranche 1 release, all preserved with mission timestamps, all released on May 8, 2026. We owe you a base rate note. There is a known phenomenon called the Apollo cosmic ray retinal flash. Astronauts in deep space report seeing flashes of light even with their eyes closed. The cause is high-energy particles striking the retina. NASA has studied it. It is real. It is the prosaic explanation that an experienced reviewer reaches for first when an astronaut reports an unidentified light in space. The cosmic ray retinal flash does not explain Collins's hollow cylinder. It does not explain Bean's particles escaping the moon. It does not explain Cernan's something out there. It does not explain Garriott's rotating satellite. The retinal flash is a punctate, brief, subjective experience. The astronaut observations preserved in Pursue are objects with shape, motion, and duration, often reported by multiple crew members and recorded in formal post-mission debriefings. We are not telling you what the astronauts saw. We are telling you they saw something. They reported it, the documents survived, and the Pentagon released them. Then we want to go further back. We want to read you what the Federal Bureau of Investigation was doing in the same era. September 1947. Director J. Edgar Hoover. Letter to Major General George C. McDonald, Assistant Chief of Air Staff. Hoover formally withdraws the FBI from flying disc investigations. The document is in Pursue under FBI file number 62-HQ-83894, Section 3. We need to flag something honestly. Most of the FBI material in the Pursue release was already in the public record in some form. According to Time and NBC News, the Pentagon's release of the FBI files contains material that was previously released through FOIA, but with fewer redactions in the new release. The novelty is the unredaction. It is not the existence. We are reading you the unredacted versions. We are not pretending these are net new. What is unredacted matters. The next document is dated March 25th, 1949. Hoover, SAC Letter 38, Special Agent in Charge Field Directive, sent to FBI field offices across the country. We are going to read the load-bearing passage the way the document presents it. Quote, "Flying discs are believed to be Soviet missile experiments." End quote. That is the director of the Federal Bureau of Investigation, in writing, on Bureau letterhead, telling field offices in March of 1949 that the official position is that flying discs are believed to be Soviet weapons. Not unknown objects, not weather balloons, not hallucinations, Soviet missiles. 1 year later, October 13th, 1950, the same FBI file, Section 6, Hoover orders an investigation. The subject is Frank Scully, the author of the 1950 book Behind the Flying Saucers. The grounds for the investigation are, in the document's own framing, Scully's possible communist ties. The directive's institutional logic is plain. The FBI was, by 1950, treating civilian UFO authors as potential foreign intelligence assets and ordering surveillance on them. We want you to hold those two documents next to each other. 1949, FBI position is that flying discs are believed to be Soviet missile experiments. 1950, FBI orders surveillance on a civilian author who writes about flying saucers. The Bureau is not just dismissing the phenomenon, it is also actively investigating the people who report it. That pattern is documented. It is in the FBI's own files. The Pentagon released the unredacted versions on May 8, 2026. Between 1949 and 1952, the same FBI case file contains correspondence about UAPs sighted at Savannah River, Oak Ridge, Hanford, Los Alamos, and Sandia. 5 facilities, every one of them part of the nuclear weapons complex. The FBI was tracking the reports. The phrase, quote, "the Los Alamos/Las Vegas/West Texas Triangle," end quote, appears in the case file in 1949 as a pattern description. The Pentagon released that material on May 8th. We will not overclaim it. We will not tell you what the pattern means. We will tell you the FBI documented a correlation, in writing, between flying disc reports and the United States nuclear weapons program in the years immediately after the program's founding. The documents say what they say. We are leaving this segment with one more piece. July 18th, 1963. The National Aeronautics and Space Council. Maxwell W. Hunter II, staffer in the Executive Office of the President. He writes a memorandum to the State Department. Subject: Thoughts on the space alien race question. We want to read the memo's tone the way Hunter wrote it. It is wry. It is institutional. It is not earnest. Hunter's framing assumes, for the purposes of the memo, that the question of an alien race is a real diplomatic and policy matter the United States government must consider. He goes through it methodically. Then he writes, quote, "No one of consequence is going to take this rubbish seriously," end quote, as a kind of escape valve at the end. The point of the memo is not to argue that aliens are real. The point is that a senior staffer in the Executive Office of the President was writing a memo about it, to state, in 1963, with a straight face. The Pentagon released that memorandum on May 8, 2026. We will be right back. This episode is brought to you by What's Near Me Now. You are in a new city, or a new neighborhood, or you just want to find a thing nearby without scrolling through ads. What's Near Me Now is the AI tool that gives you instant local recommendations based on what is actually happening right now. Restaurants, events, coffee, music, shopping, local stories. No accounts, no ads, no tracking. Just go to nearmenow.us and ask. We use it on the road. We use it at home. Find your What's Near Me Now at nearmenow.us. All right, bucket 2, the honest, skeptical pass. We have so far been telling you about the strongest documents in Pursuit Tranche 1, the Senior Intelligence Official's Helicopter Report, the AARO Western U.S. Event Slides, the Apollo and Skylab astronaut testimony, the Hoover PSYOP continuity. These are the documents that survive scrutiny. We are now going to be honest about the documents in the release that don't. The press fixation has been the videos, 28 of them, released as MP4 files, roughly 41 minutes of footage in total. The dominant outlet framing is that the videos are ambiguous. Mick West, the skeptical investigator, told Scientific American the release contains, quote, "nothing really interesting," end quote. We did our own forensic work. We ran a sensor-by-sensor, frame-by-frame analysis on every single one of the 28 videos. Sensor identification, platform inference, heads-up display extraction, object characterization, skeptical pass on alternative explanations, provenance and authenticity. Here is our finding. Of the 25 videos for which our forensic pass produced reliable output, 18 do not survive skeptical reading. They read on the evidence as drones. They read as missiles. They read as distant aircraft. They read as birds. They read as sensor artifacts, lens flare, blooming, internal reflection, compression banding. The skeptics are right about most of the videos. We want to name a few. Department of War video reference PR-19, Middle East, May 2022. 5-second clip. The Pentagon's own description acknowledges the object is, quote, a possible missile, end quote. Our forensic pass concurs. Elongated thermal signature, consistent white-hot edge, linear trajectory. Nothing in the visual evidence resists the missile explanation. Department of War video reference PR-20, Iraq, May 2022. Two bright objects moving in tandem. The Pentagon's description is, quote, probable Su-27/35, end quote. Russian jet fighter twin-engine exhaust. Our forensic pass concurs. The thermal signature pattern matches. Department of War video reference PR, the one labeled Africa 2025. 6-second clip. Small object passing through the field of view at high apparent angular velocity, high altitude platform. Our forensic pass, bird, pigeon class. The angular velocity is consistent with parallax against a distant sea surface. The Pentagon classified it as unresolved. The footage does not support the classification on visual evidence alone. We are not going to walk through all 18. The forensic synthesis is on disk at our episode page. The list is there. The conclusion is consistent. Most of the videos Pursue released are not anomalous on visual evidence alone. They are unidentified in the bureaucratic sense, meaning the agency did not assign them a positive identification. They are not unidentified in the physics-defying sense. 7 of the 25 working analyses are different. We want to name them because they are the videos worth paying attention to. DVIDS identifier 1006060, an object visible in the electro-optical sensor and completely absent from the simultaneous infrared sensor feed. A physical object with a thermal signature should appear in both. This one doesn't. DVIDS, identifier 1006067, Department of War video reference PR-27, United Arab Emirates, October 2023, 4 minutes 57 seconds of footage, a persistent unresolved point source at maximum sensor zoom, sustained unpredictable maneuvers that defeat the auto tracker, and, on the side, the Pentagon's accompanying description claims, quote, no content, end quote, for the first 1 minute 55 seconds of the clip. While the video clearly shows a coastline pan during that period, the narrative does not match the footage. DVIDS identifier 1006073, an object detectable only in shortwave infrared and which does not invert when the sensor switches to black-hot mode. Physical objects with thermal signatures should invert. This one does not. DVIDS identifier 1006088, a consistent 8-pointed star geometric thermal signature with a sustained track. The Pentagon's own description acknowledges, quote, area of contrast resembling an 8-pointed star, end quote. Geometric regularity is not a typical exhaust profile. DVIDS, identifier 1006094, a consistent thermal signature with motion that does not conform to aircraft or missile exhaust profiles, plus an unexplained dark amorphous shape in the upper frame. DVIDDS, identifier 1006105, an initial distinct square shape at the 0-second mark. The subsequent apparent growth is plausibly attributable to the platform closing distance. The initial square shape is not explained by anything visible. DVIDS, identifier 1006106, a football shape with 3 radial projections. The geometry matches no conventional aircraft, missile, or wildlife silhouette. Heavy redactions strip the supporting telemetry that would let an analyst rule things out. 7 videos, out of 28. The full list is on the episode page. We want listeners who care about the actual evidence to know exactly which videos are worth their time and which are not. Now we have to make a correction. This is the hardest segment to write because the correction cuts against 25 years of consensus framing in the UAP community itself. Inside the Pursue Tranche 1 release, the Pentagon tagged a file as part of the NASA bundle. The file's name in the manifest is reference number 255413270. Its visible title is, quote, UFOs and Defense. What should we prepare for? End quote. The file dates from 2001. It contains what has been cited for the past 25 years as the COMETA report, C-O-M-E-T-A, a French acronym. Most of the UAP literature describes it as a report by senior French military and intelligence officials, published in 1999, that concluded the extraterrestrial hypothesis was the best explanation for unidentified aerial phenomena. We have to be honest about what is actually in the file. The Pursue release preserves the original delivery cover. The file was hand-delivered in 2001 by Carol Rosen, a longtime UAP advocate, and John Cipher, an American actor, to a person identified in the cover only as Dan at NASA. It was a private delivery, not a government-to-government communication, not a French government report being officially transmitted to the United States government. Inside the file, on one of the cover pages, there is a handwritten note. The handwriting is identified in the same file's metadata as belonging to John Cipher. It is written in dark ink. It is signed. We are going to read it the way it appears on the page. Quote, "I misspoke. It is a private, not government, report." End quote. That is John Cipher, in his own hand, correcting his own characterization of the document inside the delivery itself. He had been calling COMETA a government report. He realized, before he sent it, that it was not one. He wrote the correction on the cover. The Pentagon, in 2026, preserved the handwritten correction in the file and released it to the public. We need to read that twice. 25 years of UAP discourse has cited COMETA as a French government report. The file Cipher hand-delivered, with his own handwritten retraction inside, says it isn't. We are not telling you COMETA is worthless. The document was authored by people with credentialed backgrounds in French defense and aerospace. The content is on the record. What it is not is a French government report. The Pentagon preserved the retraction inside the file. We are reading you the retraction. This is the correction we owe the audience. We expect pushback from corners of the UAP community that have built reputations on the government report framing. We are sourcing the correction to the file itself, in Cipher's own handwriting, released by the Department of War on May 8, 2026. We are not editorializing. The document does the work. One more Bucket 2 note before we move on. The headline count for Pursue Tranche 1 has been 162 files. We want you to know that the count is inflated. 3 of the State Department records in the release are not UAP material. The first is a 2001 cable from Ambassador Alexander Vershbow, then U.S. Ambassador to Russia, transmitting administrative paperwork on a Russia-Georgia airspace dispute. The acronym UFO appears in the cable's subject line as bureaucratic wordplay. The cable's substance is jurisdictional dispute resolution. The second is a 2004 cable about USAID's partnership with a Turkmenistan non-governmental organization called, separately, a UFO. The acronym is the NGO's actual name, not a phenomenon designation. The substance of the cable is Foreign Aid Administration. The third is a 2023 cable from the U.S. Embassy in Mexico City, transmitting the State Department's analysis of a public hearing held in the Mexican Congress on UAP testimony. In the cable, the U.S. Navy's Ryan Graves, a credentialed UAP witness, explicitly disavows the hearing's organizer, Jaime Maussan, as, quote, an unsubstantiated stunt, end quote. The substance of the cable is a U.S. official telling Mexico, on the record, that the centerpiece witness of a Mexican congressional UAP hearing is not credible. 3 of the 162 files are administrative paperwork containing the letters UFO as wordplay. One of the files is the misattributed COMETA delivery. The accurate count of substantive UAP material in Pursue Tranche 1 is closer to 156. The press has been repeating 162. We are repeating 156. The third is a 2023 cable from the United States Embassy in Mexico City, transmitting the State Department's analysis of a public hearing held in the Mexican Congress on UAP testimony. In the cable, the United States Navy's Ryan Graves, a credentialed UAP witness, explicitly disavows the hearing's organizer, Jaime Maussan, as, quote, an unsubstantiated stunt, end quote. The substance of the cable is a United States official telling Mexico, on the record, that the centerpiece witness of a Mexican congressional UAP hearing is not credible. 3 of the 162 files are administrative paperwork containing the letters UFO as wordplay. One of the files is the misattributed COMETA delivery. The accurate count of substantive UAP material in Pursue Tranche 1 is closer to 156. The press has been repeating 162. We are repeating 156. We are now at the third bucket, the material that was specifically promised, by name, by a member of Congress, with a deadline, and which did not arrive. On March 31st, 2026, Representative Annapali Luna, the chair of the House Oversight Task Force on the Declassification of Federal Secrets, sent a letter to Secretary of War Pete Hegseth. The letter contained a list of 46 specifically identified UAP videos that whistleblowers, in coordination with Luna's task force, had identified as existing in Department of Defense archives. Each entry on the list was identified by call sign, by IIR number, by sensor type, by aircraft type, and by date. The letter requested delivery by April 14, 2026. The April 14th deadline passed without delivery. 3 weeks later, on May 8th, the Department of War launched Pursue Tranche 1. The release contained 28 videos, none of which carried call signs, IIR numbers, or specific operational metadata. Each video was labeled by location and year only. PR-19, Middle East, May 2022. PR-27, UAE, October 2023. The label scheme is generic. We ran every name on Luna's list against the Pursue corpus. We queried for the call signs: Hackney, Toxic, Voodoo, AESIR, Mad Dog, Regulator, Hellhound, Greed, Wiley, Jacker, Cactus, Lightning, Lavender, Coffee, Mercury, Mint, Cranberry, Steel, Warlock, Assault. 19 of these call signs appear by name in Luna's request. 0 of them appear in any reference anywhere in the Pursue corpus. We want to slow down for the most journalistically significant absence. February 12, 2023, United States Air Force Air National Guard F-16 Charlie, call sign AESIR-11. The aircraft fires an AIM-9X Sidewinder missile and shoots down an unidentified object over Lake Huron, Michigan. The incident is on the public record. The Pentagon has confirmed it. Congress has been briefed on it. Luna asked for the footage in her March letter. The footage is not in Pursue Tranche 1. Lake Huron, the most famous modern domestic airspace UAP incident, the only confirmed kinetic engagement with an unidentified object in U.S. airspace in the past decade, is not in the release. It is also not the only absence. The U.S. Coast Guard C-144 Tic Tac footage from April 24, 2024, not in Pursue. The Columbus, Ohio Airport multiple UAP incident from 2023, not in Pursue. The Eglin Air Force Base sensor footage, IIR 1665S030123, not in Pursue. The NGA 6110 footage, not in Pursue. The Kabul AFSOC footage, not in Pursue. There are 2 interpretations of this gap. We owe you both. Interpretation 1. Pursue quietly relabeled Luna's 46 requested files with generic location and year labels, stripping out the call signs, IIR numbers, and aircraft types that would let anyone verify the relationship. If that is correct, the relabeling is itself journalistically significant. It would mean that what the public has access to is the same material Congress asked for, but with the operational metadata that lets you trust the chain of custody removed. Interpretation 2. The Pentagon released entirely different material, 28 videos that have no relationship to the 46 Luna asked for. If that is correct, the public was asked to trust a transparency theater that did not include the specific files Congress demanded. We do not know which interpretation is correct. Both are publishable. Both depend on a crosswalk between Luna's list and Pursue's 28 that the Pentagon has not provided. The crosswalk is presumably in the internal manifest. The crosswalk is not in the public release. We want you to keep that frame when you hear the rolling tranche language. The Pentagon has said additional releases will come, quote, every few weeks, end quote. Tranche 2 is rumored for June 2026. The rumored focus, according to one specialist outlet, is unidentified submersible objects, underwater. If Tranche 2 delivers Lake Huron, the Coast Guard Tic Tac, and the 19 call signs Luna asked for, the gap is closed, and we will tell you that. If Tranche 2 delivers more generic labeled material, and the call signs remain absent, the gap is the story. We will let you know. Here's what we believe we have established. Confirmed. The Department of War released Pursue Tranche 1 on May 8, 2026 at war.gov/UFO. Confirmed. The release contains, by accurate count, approximately 156 substantive UAP files, 28 videos, and 14 images. The headline count of 162 includes 3 State Department cables that are not UAP material. Confirmed. A senior United States intelligence official's secret/NOFORN incident report dated 2025 describes a 6-hour helicopter encounter with multiple orbs, including one that came within 10 feet of the helicopter, and orbs that, in the witness's own first-person words, appeared to pursue a U.S. military aircraft. Confirmed. The Department of War's All-Domain Anomaly Resolution Office designated the Western U.S. event briefing, in its own words, among the most compelling within its current holdings. Confirmed. 3 teams of 6 federal law enforcement special agents witnessed orange orbs launching red orbs at least 5 times over a 2-day period in 2023 in a restricted zone in the western United States. AARO subsequently measured the geometry and recorded the large orange orb as 12 to 18 meters in diameter, approximately 1,050 meters from the observers. Confirmed. NASA astronauts Michael Collins, Alan Bean, Gene Cernan, Jack Schmitt, and Owen Garriott made primary source observations of unidentified objects during Apollo 11, Apollo 12, Apollo 17, and Skylab 3. The technical debriefings are in the Pursue release. Cosmic ray retinal flash phenomenon does not account for the observations as the astronauts described them. Confirmed. FBI Director J. Edgar Hoover, in March of 1949, issued a special agent in charge letter stating that flying discs were believed to be Soviet missile experiments. In October of 1950, Hoover ordered an investigation of the UFO author Frank Scully for communist ties. The Bureau tracked UAP reports at Savannah River, Oak Ridge, Hanford, Los Alamos, and Sandia between 1949 and 1952. Confirmed. The file the UAP community has cited for 25 years as the Cometa French government report is in fact a 2001 private delivery from Carol Rosen and John Cipher to NASA, with Cipher's own handwritten retraction, quote, "I misspoke. It is a private, not government, report," end quote, preserved inside the file. Confirmed. Representative Anna Paulina Luna's March 31, 2026 request letter named 46 specific UAP videos by call sign, by IIR number, and by date. Pursue Tranche 1 delivered 28 generically labeled videos. The Lake Huron F-16 AESIR 11 AIM-9X shootdown of February 12, 2023, the USC GC-144 Tic Tac footage of April 24, 2024, and all 19 operational call signs Luna identified are confirmed absent from the release. Confirmed. Of the 28 PU-RSUE videos, 18 do not resist prosaic explanation on visual evidence alone. 7 resist prosaic explanation and merit further inquiry. 3 forensic analyses are corrupted by a generation pipeline bug and are not currently citable. Confirmed. The Department of War has said additional Pursue tranches will be released, quote, every few weeks, end quote. Tranche 2 is rumored for June 2026. Here is what we do not know. We do not know whether the 28 videos in Pursue Tranche 1 are the 46 videos Luna requested, silently relabeled and stripped of operational metadata, or whether they are different material entirely. Both interpretations are possible. We do not have the crosswalk. We do not know where the Lake Huron F-16 footage is. We do not know whether it was withheld, whether it was lost, whether it was reclassified, or whether the Pentagon will release it in Tranche 2 or later. The engagement is on the public record. The footage is documented to exist. Its absence from a transparency release is the question. We do not know the location of the 2025 secret/NOFORN helicopter encounter. Our own analysis suggests the Tonopah test range area of the Nevada Test and Training Range on the basis of the constraint set that survives the document's redactions. We do not have high confidence. The location is redacted for a reason. We do not know whether the 2023 Western U.S. event and the 2025 helicopter encounter are in the same geographic theater. They share the same nomenclature framework, the same agency, the same kind of terrain, and the same kind of witness. They are 2 years apart. The Pentagon has not stated whether they are connected. We do not know why the Carol Rosen and John Cipher private delivery is in the NASA-tagged bundle inside an official Pentagon transparency release in the first place. The Pentagon has not explained the selection criterion. We do not know whether the rolling release cadence is genuine resource constraint, deliberate news cycle management, staged disclosure, or something else. Closing. The most important file the Pentagon released this week is not what the press has been talking about. The most important file the Pentagon released this week is a secret/NOFORN incident report by a senior U.S. intelligence official describing orbs that pursued a U.S. military aircraft over 6 hours in a redacted location in the western United States. The most important file the Pentagon released this week is an AARO briefing slide deck. on which the agency's own analysis office designated 3 teams of federal law enforcement officers as witnessing material, in its own words, among the most compelling in its current holdings. The most important file the Pentagon released this week is a 1969 technical crew debriefing, in which a man who flew alone around the far side of the moon ruled out the urine dump and described in his own words what he saw. The most important file the Pentagon released this week is a SAC letter from 1949, in which the director of the Federal Bureau of Investigation told his field offices that flying discs were believed to be Soviet missile experiments. We owe you the institutional continuity that runs from that document through the 1950 Frank Scully investigation, through the Benowitz Operation Episode 10 covered, to the federal law enforcement officers in 2023 reaching for the Eye of Sauron to describe what they had seen. We want to leave you on something older still. December 5th, 1965, Gemini 7. Astronaut Frank Borman, commander of the mission, is in low Earth orbit. He calls Houston. The audio of the call is in Pursue Tranche 1, DVIDS identifier 1006119. Borman tells Houston he has a bogey at 10 o'clock high. Houston asks him whether the bogey is the booster, the spent upper stage of the Titan rocket that put him in orbit. Borman replies that the booster is in line with him at a different position. The bogey is something else. Borman does not know what it is. Houston does not know what it is. The transcript records both. The Pentagon released the audio. 60 years later, a senior intelligence official, in a helicopter, over the mountains of the western United States, wrote in his own first-person words that the orbs appeared to break off and pursue the military aircraft. We came in thinking this episode was about a press release. We are leaving it thinking it is about a 60-year-old continuity that the institution has not been able to close. We do not know what is in the channel. The channel is still operational. Tranche 2 is coming. Next time on Unresolved Signals, we pick up where episode 10 left off, with the Benowitz operation, and what is happening at the same address in Albuquerque today. This episode of Unresolved Signals is produced by Talentless AI, narration generated by 11 Labs, research conducted using Notebook LM, scripting and production by Claude. Every claim is sourced. The full bibliography is at unresolvedsignals.com/episode/special-EP03. We follow the documents. We show our work. We mark solved versus unsolved. We do not place words in mouths the documents have not earned. If you are listening, thank you for sticking with us through the long form. We will see you next time. We follow the documents.